the communication of socially complex species. Tigers hunt together, wolves, dolphins, birds. My dissertation was actually on avian communication. You probably know the bird species, Carolina chickadee and tufted titmice. They're assholes if you have bird feeders. I published their alphabet, their vocal system, and did a lot of research on how they respond to different human-caused stressors like rodents. Okay. And from there, I moved on, started working with colleagues on wolves. And so we have tracked and studied wolf vocalizations from Yellowstone to Wisconsin to other continents through a collaboration. I mostly focus now on working to improve the lives of shelter dogs. Is that door closed?
Yes.
All right. And what I mean by that is I work with a company, it's a startup out of California called Calmer Dog, C-A-L-M-R. Well, let's take the tripping device off of you. I'm over here. Oh boy. And what we do is we work together to develop products for dogs that are high energy, high anxiety, basically your bully breeds. Okay? And we have created a series of toys and some pressure, tactile pressure garments, sort of like the Thunder shirt, but much simpler to put on a dog. Toenails, sorry. Okay, so I work with them, and what we do is we take those products into different shelters, and we conducted many behavioral studies. And what we found are massive behavioral differences and stress hormone level differences after the use of toys and the pressure garments. So it's been pretty cool. We have not done any work up here at Flagler. All of the work so far has been done at Halifax Humane Society and then at Edgewater Humane Society. Now, we've stopped working with Halifax for a number of reasons. But what we saw, and I don't know if you've been to those two shelters. No, some of you have. Halifax is very big. There are a lot of dogs. It is difficult to meet the demands that ideally you would do for dogs in that situation. Edgewater is small. It is air conditioned. Every dog gets walks. Every dog gets playtime. Every dog gets yard time. Every dog, they have training staff. It's done right. And what we noticed was really interesting was a much bigger effect of our toys at Halifax in the worst environment for those dogs than at a good environment. And so what we're learning is if we can get some of these things, processes, whatnot, into shelters, we can hopefully provide a better time for the dogs there, and also increase their chances of getting adopted. So that's what I do now, in addition to training people's dogs. Where you going, bud?
The door's shut. Yeah, he's okay.
He's okay.
Yeah, he's okay.
He's just sniffing.
All right. So, my approach to dog training is based wholly in relationship. What do you think that means?
You're bond with them?
Who said trust? Good job. What else?
I said bond with them.
Bonding, relationship, trust. How do you establish trust with a dog?
Show them that you trust them.
What?
Show them that you trust them.
Ooh, isn't that a dangerous thing that I just learned the other day with 140-pound mastiff? Ooh. That's a good yes. You have to be open in the relationship. Absolutely. You're going in with bias or guard, which is very common when you're working in a shelter and you see 90% of bully breeds and you see most of the bully breeds not leaving. And most of them have been abused, have issues. And the great thing about dogs is they can read everything about us. So when you have any kind of bias or fear, here's some things you guys probably don't know about. Dogs can hear your heartbeat. They can hear how fast your heart is beating, and they can tell when it's shifts between calm, relaxed, anxious, whatever. They can also, a lot of you probably know they can detect cancer, right? Dogs can smell and identify cancer when they've been trained to do it, and sometimes just because they can. But what they can also smell is your circulating level of stress hormone. And the dogs that I work with the most are reactive dogs. And when I say reactive, most of the reactive dogs I work with are fear reactive. Now, the way that manifests can be aggression or retreat or absolute loss of mind, jumping, flipping, freaking out, or shut down. Okay, go for it.
I'd like to pick your brain on this one situation we got today with a dog named Cash. He won't let me go anywhere near him, but I don't know why.
Jesus, there's a million reasons. So let's talk after, okay? Because each situation is really individualistic, okay?
I will say he was that way with everyone when he first came. No, we couldn't touch him the first day. I got him out. Same thing with the kennel staff. It took a day or two to decompress.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, well, let's sort of take a step back. Could you imagine living your entire life in what you could remember? Okay, we're not talking infancy because none of us remember it. Really don't remember it until 5. But let's say you lived from 5 to 15, 10 years with the same people. You got used to whatever that situation was, whether it was you were kept in a room or you had a great life. And then that shit changed overnight and you end up here. What would that do to you? The isolation of being in one room.
Freak you out.
It absolutely would freak you out. You have no basis for which to understand what just happened. All you know is that everything shifted. And so a lot of these dogs that are coming in absolutely are traumatized. And they have every reason to not trust quickly. They have every reason to be reactive. They have every reason to guard the one thing they own right now, which is their kennel. And so we deal a lot with that type of stuff. You guys deal a lot with that type of stuff. I don't work with shelter dogs that often. In fact, another person I'd recommend for you guys to have in is Liz Graffigno-Taft. She was at one time a client of mine, and then she went and got her master's in canine behavior science and focuses and specializes in aggression cases in shelters. And so she and I work together on quite a few things now, which is really nice. It's a trend. So yeah, I would like to get her in one day to talk to you specifically about how the hell do you get in the cage? How do you build trust with shelter? Okay?
I tried that thing where you stick your hand out and he didn't even want to see it.
Absolutely not. So that's something we could talk about eventually is body language, how to read what the dog is doing. And one way to develop trust, so back up a little bit. In building relationship with the dog, it's very difficult for us as primates, as humans, with our perception of the world to understand a dog's perception. Okay? So when I'm teaching people about relationship, I oftentimes don't talk about the dog like they're a dog. I talk about them like they're a child. And there's a reason because of this. A, we're humans, and those are the analogies that we understand. We've all been a child, seen a child, raised a child, something to that effect. We are familiar with child development, and most of us have a relationship with a parent figure. Good, bad, indifferent, we all have one, okay? So the most common relationship I'll talk about is parent to child or guardian to dog. And if you think back to being a child, I don't know what your experience was, but I can think back, and I don't have the best relationship with members of my family because there wasn't a lot of trust. And let's talk about why. How do you develop trust with a child? You're consistent, you're reliable, you're honest, you're there for them, right? And it's the same thing with your dog. Being consistent. How many times do you come home and you celebrate with them and love on them and jump up and down and give them kisses and get on the floor? And then one day you come home, you're in a foul-ass mood and you start yelling. Get off me! Oof. Do you remember being a kid and your parents doing that? Most of the time they come, yeah, it fucks you up, don't it? And what happens is you become a kid or a dog who's constantly monitoring everybody's emotions so you know how you can or can't act. That is a stress on the system. Your cortisol is up all the time. When you are stressed like that, you're constantly concerned about fight or flight, right? So a lot of dogs in our care shelters or that I work with are dealing with that type of stuff. So the best thing you can do is just think of them like a child. Think of them as observant beings that are watching your every move. and that need that guidance and consistency. So that is what I talk about when I work with clients is how can we set them up for success? How can we build that trust? So the things I often cover with clients are first, before I do anything with the dog, I want to make sure that their internal needs are met. Okay? That sounds sort of funny, but have you ever watched a wild animal, even a squirrel? Animal lives in the wild. What they're doing is 95% of their time is spent either maintaining safety or finding food, socializing. Our dogs live wonderful lives these days. They have couches, they have the best vet care, they eat good food, they have great social lives with us, but they don't have any problems to solve. Their food is delivered, they are safe, generally, in homes with us. So what do they spend all their time doing? Fucking sleeping. On point, buddy, on point. They're sleeping, or they're barking out the window, or they're pulling on the leash when we go out for a walk, or they're peeing in the house. Or a lot of times when our dogs live these great lives, they're not actually living the life of a dog. Okay? And I'm going to take a real quick hard left. I promise I'm coming back. How many people have been to zoos in like the 70s and 80s? Yeah. Zoos. They were all concrete. Every enclosure was concrete. And most of those animals were suffering behaviorally, psychologically, and physiologically. Okay, we had depression, we had heart attacks, we had animals dying young, refusing to breed, bunch of problems. And so what happened in the 80s and 90s are behaviorists, zoologists, people who study these animals in the wild, came in and said, let's make it look like a fucking jungle, okay? Can we do something? Get some grass for these guys? So we made it look like where these animals came from, and that helped a lot. Helped a good amount. What we noticed is that they still weren't being gorillas. They still weren't able to be dogs. And so what we did is we went in, and for a gorilla who finds food by foraging, we stopped giving them salad in a bowl, right? Salad in a bowl to a gorilla. And we started hiding it in the rocks and in the trees and in the grass and putting it in boxes they had to figure out how to open and hanging it from trees so they could act like gorillas. They could do normal gorilla things. They're living longer. Depression, anxiety, self-injuring, heart attacks, all of that has fallen by the wayside for the majority of these animals. They're breeding. Regardless of how you feel about breeding in captivity, it's a sign of health and happiness. Okay? This idea of enrichment, that's what that's called, is enrichment is the opportunity to engage in natural behaviors. This spread, Dr. Ian Dunbar, any of you familiar with that name in animal behavior? He is a renowned veterinarian and I believe a behavioral veterinarian. And so what they do is they basically are like a psychiatrist, excuse me. They are really paying attention to what's going on in the brain that's leading to these certain behaviors you're seeing, prescribed medication and behavior plan, and you work through it with your dog. If you've never had to go to one, count yourself lucky. It's an experience. Okay. So, Dr. Dunbar, in this really interesting study, he took a group of dogs that all had behavior problems. Those things I talked about earlier, reactivity, barking out the windows, chasing cats, peeing in the house, eating things you're not supposed to. And
Crawling around and for some reason, kitty litter.
Yes.
Apparently,
Right?
it's not as unique to our dog.
No, it's not. It's a very common thing. So he took these dogs and for 24 hours, he stopped feeding them salad out of a bowl. He stopped feeding them kibble out of their bowl. And instead gave them opportunities to act like dogs. What he used were Kongs, right? He used Kongs in different varieties so that animals had to manipulate the object, solve problems, be active, chase the ball, do the things to get their food. Within 24 hours, he saw a 90% reduction in barking. No one, even today in humans, when we go to the psychologist and complain of depression, anxiety, loss of connection, overwhelm, you fucking name it, right? Many times it's becoming more and more popular for them to say, get back to being a human, garden, hunt, friends, family, find connection, get back to being what we're supposed to be, put the screen down, step away from the TV, get out of your computer, right? Because what we know is that when you live true to your DNA, to your being, to your history, when you are engaged in naturally occurring behaviors, it regulates the nervous system. And once you have a regulated nervous system, a lot of problems go away. And it's the same thing for dogs. So when I first take on a client, one of the first things I do is we talk heavily about enrichment. And we create an enrichment protocol. Because I know a dog, especially a dog with trauma, cannot learn until their nervous system is regulated. I mean, I don't know if anyone in here has had anxiety or ADHD or knows somebody with those kinds of things. But when you're undiagnosed or unmedicated, and you're just white knuckling through life, it's very difficult to take in information. In fact, those kids sitting in class just bouncing their leg, just watching the clock, just ready to get out of there so they can move. People who are so anxious that they really aren't hearing anything anyone's saying. The brain can't learn that way. So we regulate with enrichment. I love those small dogs. So, surprise, surprise, neurodivergent with a lot of sensory issues. Sound is one of my big triggers, and there's nothing worse than an Australian Shepherd bark for me, personally. That's a close second over there. So, okay. So, enrichment is important. You guys do enrichment here, don't you? That's where that came from. Everything I just spent time saying, that's the background behind why you're filling those fucking columns with peanut butter. Okay? Why you're doing lick mats, why you're saving paper towel rolls. To help these dogs acclimate. To give them the opportunity for fulfillment. Now, a lot of people want to fight me on this, and they start, well, my dog chases squirrels all day. I don't need enrichment. They're outside. They run on the farm. They chase the horses. Are they catching that horse? Did they catch that squirrel? Did they get to kill their prey? Did they eat it? No fulfillment. All you're doing is giving them a natural version of a pleasure point. And what we know about dogs that get stuck doing those kinds of things, it becomes obsessive for them. It becomes an addiction. It becomes a neuroticism. Okay. Manicuring your nails is normal and natural. When you bite them to bloody stumps, don't look at mine. That's called neuroticism. Okay? So same thing. Chasing a squirrel is normal, but not being able to come in or come away from that squirrel or pay attention to you or cooperate with direction like a sit because there's a squirrel nearby, that's neuroticism. Okay. So, enrichment.
So one of the things that you bring that up, and I know we do some enrichment here, but I'm wondering how many of the folks that come in and adopt the dogs know to go home and extend that enrichment at home. And that's one of the things is I really didn't learn about enrichment until, you started, teaching him about it. So my question is, even some of the dogs that might be returned, if they had gone home and known about enrichment, then maybe, so just thinking about that could be something in the packet that goes home, because I don't know how many people know about it, really.
I said 0, and that's really not fair to people. Some people are aware, but the average family that comes into a shelter to get a dog are typically not aware. And, how do I want to say this? Don't see the importance of it, because the dog goes for a walk. And the dog's fine. He didn't attack the cat. He doesn't do this, didn't do that. And a lot of times we feel the same way about ourselves. I'm fine. I'm not sick. I'm going to work. I'm functional. But it can be better. Like, holy shit, it can be better, guys. And it can be fun. Like, I'll tell you one of my favorite little pastimes. Graham, I don't censor myself, so here it goes. One of my favorite pastimes is, my youngest dog, Valentine. She is an absolute challenge for me. I am a couch potato. I like to lay down, watch TV, and do nothing, and that's why I love him. But she is not. She is a hunter. She is a junkyard dog, and she wants to fuck shit up as much as she can. Now, she's also really interested in making me happy and loves to work. Loves it. With her, if I don't do enrichment regularly, she starts becoming neurotic. She snaps at the dust particles in the air. She just can't stop hunting lizards. She becomes more likely to try to escape the yard to go after the deer or whatever it is that she sees. And so, to go back, one of my favorite things to do is to go home and I will take a towel and I'll roll it out and I'll put some dog food on it and I'll roll it up and I'll take that towel and I'll put it in a brown paper bag with a little bit more dog food. And I'll take that brown paper bag and I'll put it in a box with some more dog food. And then I take 5 or 6 other boxes and put some dog food in those and make a pile. And then I cover it with a towel with some dog food. It takes me 5 minutes to set up. I have an unbelievable amount of cardboard in my garage. It's a problem. It takes me 5 minutes to set up. I have a glass of wine, smoke a bowl, and I watch my dog. It's hilarious. It's fun, but most people see it as work. It's another thing I have to do. Well, training my dog is another thing I have to do, and we're all tired. But you've got to find a way to have fun with it. And I think it's a responsibility we have for them when we bring them home. But yeah, people are always like, well, do I have to do that? No, do the thing that you enjoy doing with your dog. Maybe it's going on safaris. Maybe it's making games for them out of food or snipping, whatever it might be. Right? How did we get there? How did we get there? So, enrichment. Mary.
But in follow up, you know,
What's your take on
trying to
with
do
certain
more
dogs and other dogs that goes to colony?
That's great.
Let them go.
Chewing. So one thing you have to remember is that chewing, licking, all of those things are natural behaviors. And if you watch wild dogs or wolves or coyotes, they chew. They chew on bones. They chew on carcasses. They chew on a lot of things. And they don't have that in our homes. But what they do have are calms. And one of the things I make sure with fights is that there's a variety of mouthfeels available to the dog. So there are these toys. Think it's called gorilla knuckles or gorilla wood. Or what it is, wood that's been specifically milled for dogs to chew on. So there's no raccoon poop. They're not going to get sick from it. It's generally doesn't splinter. Safe for the dog's mouth. I also make sure they have leather. They have hard plastic. They have rubber like calms. The calms come in different, I say flavors, but strengths. So if you have an older dog, you get them a purple, pink, or blue one. If you got a dog like him that will chew legs off of people, you get the black one for the strong chewers. The red ones are for regular chewers. But yeah, let them chew. That's one of the reasons Ian Dunbar started, putting the food in there was because a lot of dogs that come in don't know how to play with items. They don't know how to play. They've never played before. And once you attach the object, the calm, to food, which is a primary reinforcer, you can't live without food. So it makes that object, the calm, important. And then you start seeing the dog engaging in it with playing with it, with chewing on it, all those things.
Isn't it dangerous for the dog to keep eating the calm though? He eats it.
Yeah, no, that's not good.
Okay.
Yeah, they're,
That's I guess we were talking about.
yes, if they're great.
His eyes bulge out like they're almost about to pop out. He chews so much.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Is it likely? It is probably his effort itself soothing.
Yeah, definitely. It feels more like super about how long he's like maybe not getting enough out of it, or
Everything is about balance. Right? Everything's sort of in the middle. So if you see it and you can get it and you can fill it or throw him a different one, go for it. But if he's a pudgy little fucker, then no, we can't have it refilled. You know what I mean? Like, we have to there's no blanket answer to that.
right.
If he's breaking it apart and eating the rubber, problem. We can't, move him up.
Kind of have to watch him, Jimmy. Yeah.
Jimmy,
Jimmy.
Jimmy. Jimmy and his. But there are alternatives to those heavy chewers. Of course, we always have to think about the budget of our shelters because we're not swimming in money or what's donated is what we're using. But if we know we have someone who's a heavy chewer, then we might really focus on giving him those behavioral outlets for chewing. One of my dogs, Teddy, he has 6 teeth. He was a street dog in Houston. He has heavy trauma from dogs. And he has an emotional support blue football. It has grooves in it, deep grooves. And he gets his teeth in there and he will chew and chew and chew and chew for hours every day. In fact, this one toy, typically, when something's freely available and you use it all the time, you don't value it a lot. This dog will do anything for that football. He's had footballs for however I've had him 9 years, 8.5 years now. And that chewing is therapeutic for him. And if the football's not there, it's not that he falls apart. Like there are some dogs you remove that ability to chew and they're just like, shit, I can't handle this. And then they start chewing on themselves or they start acting out. That's not his case. He'll go find something else to do. But most of those natural behaviors you're seeing are an effort at self-soothing. Same thing as biting your nails when you have anxiety or twirling your hair or
Wagging your tail.
you feel nothing. Did you have anything else to say about Jimmy? No? Any other questions? Or go to Paul's, what's up?
On the property where I live, it's not my dog, but I'm the pet care, pet sitter. He will attack if someone comes on the property.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not my dog, so I have limited abilities to do things at the moment. I'm looking for solutions before he gets taken away.
Okay, so is the current, I hate this word, but in this situation it's appropriate, is the current owner upset with his behavior? Is it cause problems? Does he actually bite or do you just scare him away and yell at him? What's going on?
He has bitten. The owner has an issue.
Okay.
So I'm trying to find a way to intervene.
Is it fenced? How are people getting on the property?
Well, now it's better fenced.
I'm sorry.
It's better fenced than it was because of the situation that occurred. The large property, there's no pen. It's fenced on 2 sides.
Age, breed, history.
German Shepherd, young male.
Neutered?
No.
Okay, so he's doing his job.
Right. I get it. So what can I do?
I have no idea. I don't know what you can do in that situation. There are legalities to consider. There is safety to consider. You probably can't do anything in that situation. But what could someone do if that was their dog?
Yeah.
German Shepherds need to be working.
Right.
And depending on the line you get, whether you get a pet quality or you get a dog that failed out of working line or whatever you get, they all still have that anxiety or hyper awareness bred into them. Mm-hmm. And when they don't have something to do, the brain goes, I'm a dog, I'm going to do a dog thing. And they live in a very human primate world, and we're like, we don't like that dog thing, stop doing it. Well, what else am I supposed to fucking do then?
Right.
So, in order for that dog to follow direction, he has to have a relationship with somebody where dogs will do whatever is reinforcing. So will we. He is having fun. It feels good. He is accomplishing a goal by keeping people off that property.
Right.
And most times he barks and runs and the people leave, so he wins. He's running the property all the time. He's not an indoor dog.
He's indoor outdoor.
So that's also part of your problem. And this is another problem I run into with a lot of folks. Well, I got a farm. He's running the farm. But he won't listen to me. Well, of course not. Outside's more fun than you. Most of his life, most of his excitement, most of his fun is coming from external to you. If you want your dog to listen to you, you need to be the fun thing. You need to be the reinforcing thing. Just like if you want your kid to listen to you, you have to be important in their lives. Research shows with children and with adolescent, not kid, he's not adolescent, with adolescent dogs and kids, you get through the adolescent years easier as a parent if you and your kid have a good relationship. Same thing with your dog. I will have people that will train their puppy with me up to a year. The dog is doing great. All of a sudden, the next 2 years, they're losing their mind. The dog still listens to me. Because we have a very clear relationship. But they don't with their dogs. And it can be hard to set that up. Right? But the dog needs, he needs relationship. He probably needs enrichment. He needs direction. He needs guidance. But as long as he is having more fun on his own, then his brain is going to keep telling him what to do instead of listening to the guidance of whoever else. What I would harp on right now is management. I would put signs up. I would let everybody who comes to that property know. Do not come on unless you are guided on, unless the dog is in the house. Unless you don't want to tie the dog up, that's going to increase his likelihood to bite and become aggression, and that's basically neglect. So it's, yeah, I wish I was like, do this and it'll fix it. But every case, there's so many different inputs. I'm sorry, that's a shit situation.
I'll talk more in depth with you about it. There's so much more that I don't want to do.
Yeah, I mean, hell, let's open up for questions. I've talked quite a bit. I don't think I need to spill any more. Yeah, what's up?
So I think we're all here for the same purpose, right?
Yeah.
Was for the dogs, get them adopted. Do you have like a top 10 thing? Because we're all coming in and out, places trying to do their best. What are things that we can do, like we build trust with the dog? What are some other things that we should be concentrating on when we come?
So this is what I want to do in a talk with a whiteboard. I would like to sort of do a talk a month where we focus on, like, typically if I get a client, each session I do with them, I want to take one of those sessions and do it for you guys. To teach you how to communicate effectively. To teach you how to use your body language to effectively communicate with a dog who doesn't understand what you're saying to them. Because as primates, one of the really funny things about us is that we are almost so far removed from our natural behaviors that we are not even aware of our body language. Did you know that when you like someone, sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, when you like someone and you talk to them, you line up so your hearts are in line? Do you know that? Do you know that you mimic each other's movements, your speaking rate, the words you use? And when you don't like someone, you kind of get one of these, a little backing up on that heel. Well, if I want a dog to come to me, how many people go toward that dog? Come. I'm sorry. Oh, baby. I've never spoken to him like that. Okay, but you do. You run after the dog. Come. Now, if I called you, and I was like, hey, come on over. No. Nobody fucking wants that. You want your dog to come? Initiate chase. Back up. Run away. Use a happy voice. That's how you get your dog's attention. I think I just scared the shit out of him. But you want to try something? Just maybe you'll earn it. You'll feel better. Oh, that's a very nice boy. Thank you. Can you spin? Oh, what a nice boy. Yeah, you're still not. Oh, okay. Good job. Good job. Can you spin? Oh, very good. Can you tell me? No. Come on. Yes, go boys. Shit. Good boy. Okay, you're all done. I've been trying to teach. He's big, so he has a hard time with this, but I'll show you how much of a sucker this is. I taught one of my other dogs middle, and she gets it no problem. Watch how shit this is. You middle? Yes!
Then when you go home, you won't do it.
You're right, because his brother and sister are him-hawing around trying to get my attention. But, yes. Sorry, so what are your top 10? I would like to show you those things, but it's all going to come down to learning how to communicate with a dog who doesn't understand what you're saying and doesn't know who you are. And that's hard. You guys have a hard job, and not everyone can do it. I cannot do your job. I've tried.
How do you approach a dog for the first time in a kennel? What happens?
In general, you want to avoid anything like this, right? So primates are forward facing. We look each other in the eye. We stand in front of each other. We walk. We meet like that. Dogs do not. The best thing you can do to approach a dog in the shelter is to not approach them, but to do what a dog does, which is you catch each other's eyes and you look away, and you just sort of kind of eventually end up over there. One of these. So it's over. But is that a guarantee? No. It's not a guarantee. Because these dogs have just been through some shit. There's a lot going on in the shelter dog's mind that I don't know the foolproof way to be able to approach a dog and make sure that it goes well.
Because sometimes their trauma can have something to do with, like, for instance, me being a guy.
That should absolutely be related to the sex of the individual going up to them. It can be related to clothing. It can be related to smell, the time of day. Just like us, you can be screwed up in any number of ways as a person that's something for that. When I first adopted him, they told me I could not have aluminum cans around him. It's like, what? Now, I was a heavy Coke drinker back then, like, it was a problem. And I always had an aluminum can with me all the time. And when I took him home, I didn't see a problem. But in the shelter, the aluminum can absolutely scared the shit out of me. I think that's a weird thing to have a problem with, you know? But you never know, and unfortunately, you never know until they react.
It's unfortunate when potential adopters come in because they always are standing there.
Yeah.
And then the dog is at the cage and they're like, oh, they're so aggressive.
And then you open it and then they're like little teddy bears. Yeah.
Most you're going to start yelling at people now?
You're busted.
I think there's something very interesting about humans and the way we interact with nature. In that our only real understanding of nature is how we can use it or conquer it. And there's something very interesting about dogs in that dogs are the result of 40,000 years of genetic and behavioral evolution to wind up as our best friends. That's all they want is your time, attention, affection, food, water. Okay? Now, because of that, because of their evolution of watching us, of learning about us, of realizing that we bring benefit to their lives, like they were wolves, bro. They had a pretty awesome existence. And we were like, fire, leftovers, cool, done. They did it. But the thing is, because most dogs are what I call plug and play. You bring them home, you plug them in, and they work fine. Most people don't know each other. We share our lives with animals who could so easily put us on a t-shirt. If you don't know what that means, unalive you. Right? We are soft and squishy. We break easily. Yeah, you started a problem. You did that. And then we're surprised. We're frustrated when our dogs do dog things and we don't understand them. Right? So most people act like a primate, act like a person. They don't know how to accommodate a dog. Or, look, most people don't know how to work with children with special needs. I mean, you were a child at some point. So one of the beautiful things about society right now is slowly we are starting to open up to this idea that not everybody is the same exact person with the same needs and the same abilities. And now we make room for people like me who get very overwhelmed with sounds, or my niece that has autism and she doesn't make eye contact. In fact, she speaks in a really different way. We've made accommodations for those people. Starting to make some accommodations for people, and I notice it with our dogs too. In the 80s, if you had a reactive dog, that was a dead dog. Or it was outside. Okay? Nowadays, you get people who see a dog that most people would say that's a bad dog and go, no, that dog's having a hard time. And so there is a consciousness shift around this, and it is a beautiful thing. But it's still a very small sliver of people. And it's hard to remember that because you're surrounded by people who are like you and are accepting of that. Right?
When you say dogs need dogs, what kind of dog jobs can you give a dog other than seeking for food in a Kong? Like, what other things can you give
When I
them
say
to do?
job, I mean their brain is focused on paying attention to you to follow direction